It's easy to talk about manipulation when the manipulator is a stranger. The hard part is facing this truth when the one who controls you is someone you love, a father, a mother, a partner, a boss who gave you a chance, a childhood friend. In these cases, manipulation is more subtle, more dangerous, and more painful. Because it comes disguised as affection, care, loyalty. And you, out of fear of losing the connection, remain trapped in an emotional web that consumes your energy, your clarity, your identity. The intimate manipulator doesn't need to lie. They distort. They don't need to shout. They insinuate. They don't stop you from choosing. They make you feel guilty for choosing differently. Over time, you stop questioning. You start walking on eggshells. You avoid conflicts. You anticipate reactions to keep the peace. And without realizing it, you become a hostage of an invisible prison, built with the bricks of emotion. In a romantic relationship, this can seem like affection. I only do this because I love you. Without you, my life has no meaning. But love that demands submission is not love. It's emotional blackmail. In the family, it dresses itself as tradition. You can't do this to your mother. You owe us respect. But respect that comes from guilt is not respect, it's control. At work, it presents itself as loyalty. You have to be grateful. Who else will give you a chance like this? But gratitude used as a debt is pure manipulation. And here's the central point. Proximity does not justify emotional violation. Love does not give the right to shape the other with fear or guilt. However, to break this cycle, you first need to accept something uncomfortable. Not every relationship where there is affection is healthy. Not every person who loves you knows how to love you freely. And not every bond that holds you is protecting you. Some are just preventing you from growing. But how to act? Start by setting boundaries. Clear, firm boundaries that don't need justification. A no said with serenity has more power than 1,000 arguments. Then comes exposure. Say what you see, what you feel, what you will no longer accept. Not to convince the other, but to assert yourself before yourself. And finally, stand firm when the reactions come. Because they will come. Insults, victimhood, punitive silence. The manipulator feeds on your hesitation. They test your limits, hoping you will back down. And here's the reality that few have the courage to face. Sometimes loving someone means stepping away. It means exiting the dysfunctional dance and letting the other confront their own emptiness. Because as long as you are there, trying to save, sustain, or explain, they will not change. And you will lose yourself. It's a difficult choice, but a necessary one. Because only those who free themselves from toxic bonds can develop a new kind of vision. One that sees beyond words, beyond masks, beyond superficial intentions. And it is with this new vision that we enter the next stage. How to apply Machiavelli's strategic thinking in modern life to keep the mind shielded in a world where everything and everyone tries to influence you. The time has come to turn the tables. Machiavelli never wrote to please. He didn't care about appearing ethical, virtuous, or well-intentioned. His commitment was to raw, unvarnished reality, the kind that most prefer to ignore. And if you want to survive psychologically in today's world, you need to learn to think like he did, with brutal clarity, cold strategy, and emotional detachment. Because make no mistake, we live in an era of constant manipulation. Social media, marketing, politics, religion, relationships. Everything operates based on influence, image, narrative. Those who do not understand this are swallowed by it. Machiavelli saw human beings as predictable, driven by interests and emotions, and he asserted that those who understand these mechanisms hold power. He said, "Men generally judge more by their eyes than by their hands. Everyone can see, but few can touch." In other words, perception is worth more than truth. And that's how the game works today. Whoever controls the narrative controls the decisions. Whoever controls the image controls the influence. And whoever understands the psychological mechanisms controls the behavior of others without needing to raise their voice. In practice, what does this mean? It means you need to stop living on emotional autopilot. Machiavelli did not believe in universal morality. He believed in context. What works for one may be a weakness for another. What seems noble in theory can be strategic suicide in reality. Kindness without discernment is foolishness. Honesty without timing is self-sabotage. Limitless altruism is servitude. If you want to be free, you need to learn to play the game and play it well. This starts with observation. Learn to read people as Machiavelli read the nobles, not by what they say, but by what they do when no one is watching. Evaluate behaviors, not promises. Analyze patterns, not excuses. Trust less in words and more in the hidden interests behind them. And above all, do not react. Anticipate. The manipulator acts strategically. Your defense is to always be one step ahead. Then, apply silence as a weapon. One of the biggest mistakes people make is excessive emotional exposure. They show too much, they talk too much, they explain too much. The Machiavellian understands that silence confuses, commands respect, and disrupts the manipulator's rhythm. When you do not react as expected, the game loses its script, and it is in that void that you gain control. Another essential application is mastering ambiguity. Machiavelli taught that to maintain power, one must know how to appear virtuous, without necessarily being so. In the modern world, this means adapting your language, your posture, your presence according to the environment, without losing your essence. You do not need to reveal yourself completely. You only need to show enough to control perception. The rest, you keep to yourself, because real power is what is not displayed. And most importantly, take responsibility for your own emotional state. The manipulator feeds on your instability. They need you to doubt, fear, and hesitate. When you know yourself, regulate yourself, and remain steadfast even under pressure, you become impenetrable. Machiavelli would write, "The prudent man should follow the paths beaten by the great and imitate those who have been excellent, so that even if he does not reach their level, he may come close." In other words, use the wisdom of those who mastered the game to stop being a pawn in it. Now that you understand the workings of manipulation and how to strategically protect yourself from it, one question remains: what to do with all this? How to transform this knowledge into practical strength, into a new way of existing in the world, immune to external influence. This is what we will explore in the final part. How to take control of your own mind and never be manipulated by anyone again. Are you ready to cut the last invisible strings that still control you? Then continue. We have reached the most important point of this video, and perhaps the hardest to accept. As long as you do not take full control of your mind, someone else will do it for you. And it doesn't have to be a Machiavellian villain, a caricatured, manipulative figure. Sometimes it's someone smiling next to you. Sometimes it's a phrase you heard as a child and still carry today without questioning. Sometimes it's society itself, which shapes you from an early age to obey, yield, and remain silent. The manipulation that affects you is not just in the words of others. It's in the thoughts you never learned to question. It's in the emotions you treat as absolute truths. It's in the decisions you call choices, but which, in reality, were induced by fear, guilt, and the need for acceptance. Freedom begins when you stop calling free will what is, in fact, disguised conditioning. But this freedom comes at a cost. It requires you to break the illusion that everyone has good intentions. It demands that you dismantle the image you've built of yourself as someone who must always be kind, understanding, and available. It requires you to tolerate the discomfort of setting boundaries, the weight of silence after a no, the loneliness of stepping away from dynamics that harmed you, but that seemed like part of your identity. You will no longer be manipulated when you understand that you no longer need to be accepted. When the fear of displeasing no longer holds power over your actions, when your clarity is greater than your neediness, and when, finally, you can look into the eyes of those who tried to control you and calmly say, "No more." What you do with this knowledge now depends only on you. You can go back to your life and forget everything. Continue playing the game without knowing you are being played. Or you can start today to train your mind, to observe, analyze, resist, and rebuild. You can choose to become the kind of person who does not bend to emotional blackmail, who sees through the masks, who walks firmly even when everyone around is going in circles. Comment below. At what moment in your life did you realize you were being manipulated? What was the click that made you see? Or are you still caught in some emotional game and want help to get out? Share. Speak up. Because verbalizing is the first step to breaking the cycle. And if this video opened your eyes, don't stop here. Watch the next one. It is just as important as this one, perhaps more. Knowledge is a ladder, and each step takes you a little further from the darkness. So keep climbing, because the truth not only sets you free, it transforms. See you there.